Was the acceptance of trying to pursue Big Brother, was that more a business move or was it a move to kind of find yourself?
I did it because I knew I could fucking do it. Fame is the biggest drug. When you get fame and you don't know how to handle it, it could take you over and you will completely lose yourself.
Where did your confidence come from?
I'm a firm believer in pushing yourself and testing yourself. And I'll give you an example. There's actually one time where I actually got myself into a fight with 3 people to see if I could survive. I didn't know that my dad was one of the reasons why Nigeria had a democracy.
Right, welcome back to the podcast, Stephen Sully Study. What a special day this is.
Thank you.
I've got a man in front of me, high profile, wicked guest. But the reason why it's special is for 2 reasons. Number 1, this is the first recording of 2023 for me.
Hey.
And what a guest to have.
Thank you.
Kid Waya.
Yes, you got it right.
Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming aboard. I'm looking forward to this podcast.
Absolutely, my pleasure, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So we got to meet. You came to our opening event on the 21st of December.
Yeah.
This podcast isn't about plugging the event or even the gallery. But as we're on that subject, what did you think about the night? Did you enjoy yourself? What did you think about the artwork?
So the night was a great night, and for me, I judge evenings like that in a couple of very simple stats. 1 is the crowd, 2 the ambience, the energy, and 3 is the drinks. You know, and I felt like that night ticked all 3 boxes. A good friend of mine actually invited me to the event, working on a project together in Nigeria, but I'm a person who, I love art. I used to paint back in school. So when I first walked in and I saw all the art pieces there, I already knew I was kind of at home. So for me, the event was great. It was welcoming. And yeah, you were doing your thing and I respect that.
Good stuff. I gave you a little sales presentation pitch, as it were, about Richard Hamilton, the Godfather Street Art. With the limited information I gave you with watching the Shadow Man documentary, what's your thoughts, what's your feelings?
So, the guy was interesting. I mean, I liked his story, and I like the fact, and this might sound weird, but I like the fact that he got heavily into drugs. And the reason why I say that, and I don't mean it from a harmful point of view, I mean it a point of view as it makes him really fucked up and interesting, and I feel like that's what people buy. Nobody wants someone who's boring and doesn't do shit, right? This guy was into drugs heavily, had an up and down kind of story. He was at the top with all the glitz and glamour, supermodels and whatever. Hit rock bottom doing drugs, was almost forgotten about, and came back up. Now that's a rags to rich, rise to glory story, which everyone fucks with. And I like that so much about him, the fact that he was a normal human being, a normal geezer, whatever you like, and the fact that he just stuck to what he really loved, which was painting, and the fact that he did realism paint, which I never even knew was a thing, but the fact that he just stuck to what he was passionate about. This is the guy that has a story. And for me, someone like me who's a storyteller, I can resonate really profoundly with people like him. So I love the story, and it kept me on a bit of a cliffhanger because I didn't know if he died or not, and he actually told me. But he's someone I definitely feel like people will start to learn more about him and appreciate what he does, you know?
And do you know what? Something you just said there, which just resonated with me, is people like to look at, research and be around people who are authentic.
Yeah.
Now, not all the time we're going to agree with that person's authentic view, but what we can do is respect it.
Absolutely.
When someone said to him, paint a shadow man, and he said, no, I'm going to go and paint a landscape, he was basically doing that to the art world. He said, fuck off, I'm going to do my thing. And doing drugs, we know that's really bad, and we would never advise anyone to do it.
Don't do drugs.
Yeah, don't do drugs, kids. But one thing we can resonate with or kind of applaud in some respects is he just didn't care, and he wanted to live the life that he wanted to live, not how other people told him to live. And that's, again, why so many people are drawn to his market. Right, I'm going to jump into your story. Listen, there's so much I want to ask you. One, because I'm actually truly interested in you as a person. I mean, you're young, March the 5th, 1993. I mean, I can't believe you've achieved so much and done so much at a young age. But I'm going to ask you a bit of a weird question to start the podcast with.
All right.
So, the source is from Gist Flair on the 11th of the 3rd, 2022. So I'm just saying what they said. This is their question. What's your biggest achievement? And this is your answer. Getting into health and fitness has been my biggest achievement. I used to be quite chubby, so I transformed my body and I have been consistent ever since. And when I'm an outsider looking at your profile, looking at your Insta, if I were to guess your answer, I would be like the traveling, the experiences, the cars, the being a big brother, etc. But you actually said something so simplistic as training. Can I ask you, was you really that chubby?
It was mentally. Mentally, I was never comfortable with my body. And this is what people need to understand. There's two types of fitness. There's mentally fit and there's physically fit. Now, I say this to anyone who I'm training. Before you get physically fit, you must be mentally fit. And for long periods of time, I was never comfortable mentally with my body. No matter what people said, oh, you look great, whatever. I was never happy with my body. And when you get stuck in that prison, when you're not happy with yourself, it's very hard to get out. And for me, that was a big achievement, getting out of that and actually getting some consistency and being happy with my body. Think about it, right? There's so many young women and children out there, right? And even adults that are not comfortable with their bodies. Like, they look fine, they look great, but they need that Botox, they need the butt lifts, they need this, they need that. Majority of humans are not happy with themselves in their situations because they're mentally trapped. They're mentally trapped. And people need to understand how powerful it is to be able to free yourself. You know, because a lot of people are trapped in their own prison, and I was as well. Once you free yourself, once you liberate your mind, there's so many possibilities out there. You see the world in a completely different spectrum. So the day I liberated myself was when I did that interview and I felt, you know what? I feel fucking free now. And no one's gonna understand that feeling apart from the individual. But that was my truth. Now, if you ask me that same question, I've got another answer for you. That answer is, you know, breaking out of my own matrix. And what I mean by that is that it was very difficult to break out of my father's comfort zone, our family wealth, our lifestyles, and all of what all that brings. You know, coming from that type of background, you know, I had everything for me. You know, from the maids, the chefs, the cooks, the drivers, the planes, whatever it is. And I was so comfortable in that I almost wasn't living my own life. You know, and one day I literally packed my shit and actually left the comfort of that confinement and started by myself. Essentially, I became broke, leaving all of that behind to pursue this new journey of me, of like, who am I? Because the truth is, I never knew who I was living under my dad's command, under his rule. I had to go and find who the fuck am I? Like, who's this new kid? And I felt like over the last couple of years, I found that. And my story is pretty new. My story actually starts from 2020 up until now. And everything I've achieved is from that really short time frame, you know, so.
It's interesting stuff, bro. And I've got to be honest, like, doing my bit of research I always try and do on my guests, I don't try and do too much because I don't want it to be too staged. I want it to be a free-flowing conversation, but you need to have some foundations to talk about. And I agree with you. A lot of it does stem from 2020. So let's just jump into that then. Big Brother, that big brand that everybody knows about, is a TV program series that people absolutely adore, resonate with, and it's been very, very popular. Yeah. And it's been franchised all around the world. Previously, it used to be called Big Brother Nigeria, and now it's called Big Brother Niger House.
Yeah, Big Brother Niger.
Okay.
Niger.
2020, which ironically was the year of lockdown, you were in Series 5 and you were entered into the Big Brother house over there, and I think it was aired on Africa Magic.
Yes. Okay. TSTV, Multi-Choice, Africa Magic, yep.
So
actually, it was Africa, to be fair. It was aired, and people need to understand this, right? First of all, it's the second biggest Big Brother in the world. Brazil is the first. Brazil always has over 1 billion votes or people like interacting with it. Nigeria has 953 million. So it's the second biggest, and it was Africa that were watching it, not just Nigeria. This was Big Brother Africa. It was called Big Brother Nigeria. It wasn't Nigeria, but it was like, it spoke for the continent.
Question is, and this is trying to put myself in your shoes. By the way, if someone offered me to go to Big Brother today, I would do it. So I'm just clearing the record.
You would kill it as well. Yeah. You would kill it as well.
Was the acceptance of trying to pursue Big Brother, was that more a business move, or was it a move to kind of find yourself?
I did it because I knew I could fucking do it. I went by feeling. Like, first of all, how I even got there, and I love telling the story, was I I just finished my National Youth Service, which is like a compulsory army service for Nigerians. I didn't actually get the certificate because I skived a bunch, like I spunked it. But anyway, I just finished doing that, and this was like around summertime, I think April, March or May, one of those months. And we started hearing that COVID is spreading, borders are starting to close up, shit's just happening. So I was like, fuck this, man, I'm done with Nigeria. Like, I need to get back to UK because I grew up here, you know, and get back to UK and just do my thing. So I used all the little pennies I have to buy a place, in my own place in UK, and I booked a flight, BA. So I booked my flight for the following week, right? And one day I was on Facebook. There's nothing going on in the world. Like, everything is closing down. People are just losing their shit. Nothing's happening. And I see a sponsored ad saying, submit a 2-minute video of why you think you should be in the Big Brother house. And funnily enough, I knew instantly I would get in because I knew people who knew who I was, or they knew my last name, they knew my family name. So I knew I would get in. But I still wanted to leave back to UK, but I just felt like, let me just send in my profile anyway to see what happens. So I did that. And then a day before my flight, BA sent me an email saying the flight's been cancelled. I'm like, cool, whatever, booked for the following week. As that flight was cancelled, I got through to the next stage, right? And to cut a long story short, that kept happening until I was actually in the house. And I never got that flight from BA. So it was almost like it was God's plan for me to go through this route. I went in there with like 2,000 followers. I came out with 800,000. And trust me, when I say my life changed, my life changed. My dad actually kicked me out of the house before I actually went into Big Brother because he didn't want the exposure. He didn't want all his political and government stuff being exposed. So he kicked me out of the house. But I went in there, came out a different human. I mean, I didn't know how to handle fame, right? I was relatively a quiet person. You know, I love to go to gym, health and fitness. Here I am coming out with everyone, the continent, knowing who I am. You know, I had no support system I couldn't go to family and friends because they couldn't relate to what I've been through. So I had to deal with it all by myself, you know, and that led to some certain anxieties and other things which we can go into later. Yeah. It's
funny because you might be familiar with a guy called Jack Fincham. Don't know if you do. Love Island.
Yeah.
He was a winner a few years back.
Yes.
A friend of mine, really, really lovely fella, pursuing their boxing career now. Yeah. A lot of the people with good profiles end up pivoting that kind of way, and I think all credit to him.
Yeah.
But he was very open about it. Very similar to you, actually. Won it. He came out, as in the Love Island, and he was standing in this building, and the guy went to him, the moment we open this door, your life's going to change, because outside is all these screaming fans and you're the winner and they all want to get to know you. And he said it was literally opening a door and it was opening into a new world. He like stepped foot into this world, and the anxiety, the excitement, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to handle it, not like just didn't really get it. And unfortunately, like a lot of these people, I mean, Love Island is quite notorious actually for a lot of people who have actually killed themselves off the back end of that show.
Yeah, sad, man, sad.
He fortunately didn't, but he did confirm on my podcast, he tried to commit suicide a few years ago, you know, by drinking too much and taking drugs. But the drug abuse, the drinking, etc., it caught up on him. Thankfully now he's on top of his game and he's, you know, healthy and well, etc. I mean, was your experience the same? Did you ever have them sort of thoughts or feelings, or did you ever go down that path?
Nah, mine, honestly, for the first 8 weeks, I killed that shit. I was born for it. And I was straight up born for this. And I handled it with ease. But 8 weeks in, and I'll tell you how I got into my first anxiety panic attack trip or whatever. I was lying on my bed speaking to my cousin. I had a beautiful day. You know, deals coming right, left, right, center. Everything was going perfect. One day I got up to try and go to use the toilet, and my legs felt like jelly. My mouth was drying up. I felt dizzy. And I was thinking, okay, maybe it's just COVID or some shit. So I called my doctor. I explained all my symptoms, and they didn't really know what it was. So they came in, did my BP. My BP was 190 over like 130. So these are levels where it's mad. So I flew around the world. I went to Turkey, went to Dubai, went everywhere. They couldn't really tell me what it was. They just kept saying, you got really high BP, you gotta stop drinking, you gotta stop eating this kind of food and that kind of food. They even put me on fucking drugs at my young age, like all these, you know, BP drugs. So I took that for like 2 months. And I came to UK, I had one conversation with my doctor, and what she told me was, listen, kid, you had an anxiety or you had a panic attack. It's okay, you can't die from it, it's just a panic attack. And that was the first time I understood what the hell it was. Because before I didn't know what it was. So I was dealing with all these weird chemistry reactions happening in my body, but I had no idea what it was. I just thought that, okay, I have to be on these drugs to be able to maintain my BP so I don't just die one day. But I never had bad thoughts. I never wanted to kill myself. I never struggled with being a celebrity. I only struggled with understanding what this anxiety was, why it came and how it came. And that was the only thing I went through during the last couple of years of fame. Like I said, and I tell everyone this, fame is the biggest drug. It's the biggest drug. Forget ecstasy, forget heroin. Fame is the biggest drug. When you get fame and you don't know how to handle it, it could take you over and you will completely lose yourself. Think about being famous and being rich. Think about what it does. You have access to completely everything. Everybody wants to be your friend. All the girls want to sleep with you. Everybody wants to fuck with you. If you don't know how to handle those things, it's going to be like an explosion. You're going to self-destruct. So it literally is the biggest drug and the biggest discipline to have.
So before you walked into that Big Brother house, do you prefer life before or after it?
Hell no, I prefer life after. Straight out, I'm not gonna lie. The life after is so much better because this is me. I created all of this. My dad has nothing to do with this. My life before, all my dad, respect to him. And I appreciate that. But everything after Big Brother, it's all on me. This is me carving out my future, my path, me making choices and decisions. So I will choose this life, a million times over.
A bit of a personal question, but it's something that I feel that people would want to ask. So Big Brother, Love Island, Towie, Made in Chelsea, they all kind of put in the same box, which is reality TV, right? So I do sometimes question, I've had a few reality TV stars on, and I do ask them, certain scenarios, is that real or is that a bit more for the camera? And I do get mixed answers. So I'm going to ask you one of the questions. Was your love affair with Erica real?
Fucking hell. Define real.
Was there a feeling there?
Okay, so fucking hell. All right, so what it was, right? It was like when I was in the house and you're spending all that time with one person, it was real in that moment because we spent every day together and she's a wonderful person. We used to cook together, we used to, clean together and do tasks together. And she really was the biggest support system. But then it didn't become our relationship anymore. It became the fucking continent's relationship. Like we had people planning the name of the baby, planning weddings, planning every single thing. Up to this day, and I love all my fans, by the way. I love you guys, so shout out to everyone who's supporting me. Up to this day, we have groups with mine and her name, called Kidrika, who pray for us every single day and still kind of pray for us to come back together. So it became difficult because it wasn't just me and her anymore. It was like, we've got millions and millions of people who are watching every move, who have something to say. And that just made it difficult. It made it difficult to actually form a relationship, especially coming out into the real world. We had so much battles we were fighting, So it was never going to work because of that. But we're still very good friends to this day. And I'm a big fan of her. She's killing it in the acting industry. And, we're always going to be friends. Like she was a big part of the new me. And I really respect that, and I respect her. And
the last question, just on this subject, and then I'm going to move on to basically all the opportunities that have come off the back end of the Big Brother house, is there was comments online about you getting engaged. How true is that?
That was completely false. So, and it was to Laura. But anyway, so I went out for dinner. A good friend of mine, Pastor Toby. Shout out PT, and Danny Freeze, who's like a blogger / sort of media guy. He was there with his wife. I came with Laura, and I said to him, "Look, Danny, let me show you what real love looks like." And I kind of fed her Laura and then kissed her, and then he filmed it, and then he captioned on Instagram, "Kid Waya showing us what real love looks like with his fiance." I think literally an hour later, it blew up everywhere. Even on national political tabloids where you think, like, what the fuck? Like, why are you posting about my relationship? Like, it blew up everywhere. And I let it slide for I think it was like a week or so. I said nothing for a week, but then my family started calling me, like, yo, are you engaged? Like, why didn't you tell us? It got to the point where I was like, I had to just shut it down because people close to me kept asking me. So yeah, it wasn't true, but it was fun while it lasted.
Well, listen, it's good bit of PR and marketing, eh? So talk to me about, coming out of the Big Brother house. And I know you said your life changed. The followers went from, relatively small amount to like massive amount.
Yeah.
And by the way, now you've got 1.5 million followers just on Instagram alone, and you're verified, which I want to talk to you about that in a second. How did you distinguish good opportunities from bad opportunities when you come out there? Because let's be real. As you said in your own words, everyone wants to fuck with you, but there's going to be snakes, there's going to be sharks. How do you tell which ones are the good opportunities and which ones are bad?
I mean, I've been dealing with that all my life because, again, before Big Brother, we were still at the top. Our family, our names, our connections, we were still there anyway. So everyone around us wanted to be part of that. So for me, I always go based on feelings, and I always go based on a mutual beneficial thing. And I would, if someone came to me and said, look, kid, I've been around Steven's going to want to use you. Don't be careful with him. Don't trust him. I will completely ignore that. And whatever relationship me and you have is what will determine us going forward. Now, and this is very important for all men out there. I never judge anyone if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting that person. So first, we will need to meet, and whatever you're offering, if you can benefit me and I can benefit you, then we fucking shake hands. I see nothing wrong with that. That's how I dealt with things going into this industry. Is everything should be mutually beneficial, because that's the belly of the beast we're in. So as the minute that benefit becomes impartial or it's not there anymore, then I realize that, okay, if I'm doing way more than what you're doing for me, then I realize what kind of relationship it is. Then I start to sort of look and question things here and there. Then I've got it's like a sand glass. At some point, it's just gonna stop. You know what I mean? But I will go into anything with the same amount of love and respect that I do with anybody. And it will be based on how we firstly initial interact with each other. So that's how I dealt with things going into the industry. Okay.
So you're following just on Instagram alone. I always say to people, it's a massive responsibility because the word influencer is thrown around a lot and it's used by the media to put someone into a bracket. But if you really think about it, you're influencing at least and maybe more 1.5 million people for what you do, what you say it, how you react, how you respond, etc. I know you're the type of person that can handle it, but do you ever think sometimes, Jesus, I do really have a lot of fan followers and a lot of support, and it is a massive deal sometimes?
So it's actually crazy because, like, this is why you gotta be careful what you tweet, because sometimes you feel like you're just saying what's in your mind and you feel like no one's really listening or watching, but you can tweet something and literally 3 seconds later you can think, fuck, that's that, let me delete that. But that tweet has gone so far, it's been screenshotted, it's been posted everywhere. That is the power we have. Like I can post something and it can be on all the blogs, all the news channels, everywhere in Nigeria and possibly Africa. Like that's how powerful my audience is and how powerful my fingers are. So obviously with great power comes great responsibility, as everyone knows. So I do know that I'm very influential and I do have this massive power and responsibility, and it does actually make you think twice before you do things, especially when it comes to relationships and trying to, because especially with relationships, the reason why I'm quite private with it is because the other person might not want that type of exposure, because there are a lot of horrible people out there that will say things to you and you send death threats and that kind of stuff. So people are not cut out for that. So we do try and keep a lot of things private because, you have your own life to live as well. But people in our position, like, you have to have your head screwed on to deal with all of this. Otherwise, like I said before, you can just self-destruct.
Yeah. You mentioned about comments, and I always like to ask people with big following. There's obviously the great ones, like people get inspired by you, people that adore what you do, relish, the opportunity of seeing you perform or achieve something, and they want to mimic it. But there is the downside of social media, which is the abuse.
Yeah.
Had Aaron Chalmers on, who is from Geordie Shore. He's now
I watched that as well. Yeah. I watched that.
and his newborn baby was born.
Yeah.
Kissed the baby, and then he had all this insult from people saying, shouldn't be kissing your newborn baby, blah, blah, and just really going in on him. Again, I know you're an alpha type male, so I know you're, water's off a duck's back. People can shoot bullets at you and they'll bounce off you. I understand that. But there's only so much, weathering we can all take as human beings. What is the worst comment that you've had on social media directed at you?
So when my grandmother died, right, and there was something going on Twitter. I think fans were arguing on Twitter or something, and then someone said, "Oh, that's the reason why your grandmother died." And I just felt at that moment, I felt like I get the fan beef you have with other fans, and maybe because this one's your favorite and you like this person, so you're not gonna like this person. I get that, but like. When something like that happens, when you lose somebody that's really close to you, and someone says, "Oh, that's the reason why she died," because of a fucking TV show, that I couldn't understand that. I was like, is it really that deep? Like, forget who you love. As more of a human, like, what allows you in your heart, in your soul, what allows you to really say that? They might not mean it, but what just allows you to say that when someone's just lost someone that was very close to him? So that was the first time ever that I've actually been genuinely hurt. Other than that, it is what it is. But that's the first time that I genuinely felt pain.
And if I were to be in your shoes, right, had the cool glasses on, wicked top, the swagger, the confidence, and I'm bowling through, the airport at Lagos or somewhere in Nigeria, what am I going to experience?
I mean, first of all, I have to come in with my security team when I'm going through anywhere in Lagos, because it is crazy. Like, these guys are so passionate. When they fuck with you and they love you, like it's hard. It's not like in UK. UK is a bit different. Like UK, you can have celebrities and people walking around, and you won't really have thousands of people around them. Nigeria, especially Africa, is like that. Like, they will be all over you and stuff. So it is very hectic. Going back home, it's like an operation, trying to like figure out which way to go and how can kid get in and get out. But I love it, man. I love the love they show. It's generally warmth. It's generally like love that these guys show us, But for me, it's not somewhere I can live at right now, because I'm in this journey trying to find myself, and I'm also humbling myself as well. And I feel like the best place to live is in a place where A, no one really knows you that well, and B, no one really cares, because then it makes me work harder and harder and harder and build myself up, and not be this person on the pedestal because everyone loves him in Nigeria and everyone wants to be with him and everything's glitz and glamour. That's very easy. It's an easy life, extremely easy. I actually left, came back. I haven't been back to Nigeria in 1 year, by the way. I haven't been back in 1 year. I came here to hustle, to work hard and build myself up. That's the kind of life I like. But yeah, man, Nigeria is wonderful. Yeah. But it's crazy as well.
Is it?
It's crazy.
So you're talking about thousands and thousands. Like, it's a bit like the way I would probably describe it, I don't know, Ronaldo going back home to Portugal. Like,
no, Ronaldo's different. Ronaldo's different. I'm not going to be arrogant and say I'm like Ronaldo. He's different, but look, it would be hard for me to walk in and out of the airport, because then people recognize when I wear a face mask with my hoodie and glasses, you have somebody to come up to you like, yeah, so you thought we didn't recognize you. Or somebody, right, they'll just shout my name. And the idiot in me turns around, and that's how they test. Like, I've had it so many times. Somebody be like, "Kid Waya," and I just turn around like, "Fuck, why did I turn around?" And that's how they know. But
then they go.
These guys know. They know your voice. They know the wrinkle line from here. Even when you cover up, they know everything. The way you walk. I swear to God, they know the way I fucking walk. Trust me. There's no way you can hide, man. Just like, come in, come out, show your love, take pictures, and just thank God, you're in that position to really make people happy, which is the most important thing, right?
So I've also got here that you actually, and you got a degree from Nottingham Trent. You got a master's in business science, a degree there, yeah?
Yeah, 2-1 high accommodation.
So I know you kind of described it already. You wanted to have your own identity and not be under, let's say, the identity of your father. But why come all the way to Nottingham to get a degree, a master's degree in business science?
So I got the degree in 2017. So that was pretty much before the new me. And look, I grew up in UK, left Nigeria when I was 6 years old. So I went through the whole educational system. And for me, around my time of when all my peers were similar age, the most important thing was like getting going to university, getting a degree, especially for African parents. Like that is so important for African parents. Get a degree, get a master's, come to your army service and go through some sort of like diplomatic, doctor route or whatever. So it was quite important for them. And for me, it was still about finding myself, because breaking out from boarding school and going into university, two very different things. University is like, there's no one telling you when to get up, when to go to bed, or what to do. You're literally your own person. So I did a lot of self-discovery during university. And I loved that so much that I came back to do a master's. And that's kind of the right reason why I did a master's. And because I'm fucking smart. I'm smart as well. And I had to use this big brain to some sort of use. So I said, you know what, go and get a master's. And then after that, see what happens.
You know what, I consider myself confident. I think you have to be when you're in business. Yeah. I box. I've had 16 boxing fights. So
really? I love that.
Yeah. My last fight was last year.
Nice.
I'm planning to do a few more before I'm 44, whatever you called me earlier.
You got many years. Don't worry. Oh no, sorry, stop.
And my background is in sales, so most of the time, 99% of the time, you're getting told no, and it's a special type of person that builds that resilience to work out that no isn't no forever. It's no right now, but it could turn into a yes later on. But I do admire other people got this other type of confidence, and yours is quite infectious. Where did your confidence come from?
So if my confidence, I'm going to give my dad a little props here, so I don't sound too arrogant. But my dad is about 5'5". He's a very, very short man, but is so flamboyant, and he's so confident in the way he walks and talks and how he does his thing. And that's someone I've always admired growing up. I've always been a very good watcher. I can watch people and learn things from them. So I've watched him most of my life and stuff, and I guess I picked up some things from him. But I also think it's also nurture as well. It's the people I've been around, it's the situations I've put myself in. I'm a firm believer in pushing yourself and testing yourself. And I'll give you an example. There's actually one time where I actually got myself into a fight with 3 people to see if I could survive. This was in uni. Started it, okay? And I'll show you how I started it. What is it when there's someone standing in a walkway and when you walk in between them, why do people get so offended with that? But that's what happened. So there's 3 guys on a path, like taking up the whole path. So I walked right in between them knowing it would cause a reaction, and of course it did. So what I learned that day is the fact that I can handle my own, which is so important. You need to know if you can handle your own, because a lot of the time we're so comfortable in whatever safety net we're in. We never push the human body, especially our mind. You think you're strong, you think you're this, but you've never really tested yourself. And that day I kind of tested myself to see if I can get myself out of the situation, whether it's fighting them off or being able to get away. And I succeeded in that. So I throw myself in the deep end all the time. Like, I haven't done a podcast before, but I'll come here and I'll answer all the questions and I'll fucking do it. I haven't done many things before, but I'll go and do it to see if I can do it. That's the only way you can really test yourself. And over the years, I realized that, you know what? You've done everything that you've actually thrown at yourself. You've done it and you've come out completely fine. And that's just given me the confidence to just bring it. Like, there's nothing that can affect me, and you've got to have that kind of mindset in whatever you do. If you don't have that mindset, man, then just, keep on admiring from afar.
I know it's cliche, but there's no such thing as failure. And as you pursue something new, you learn a lot about the thing you're pursuing, but a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
Fighting is a great example. I always use, when I sort of, used to run dedicated sales team, raising money for different investments, etc. When I used to do the talks to 50 sales guys predominantly, alpha type mind, really kind of like boisterous and everything else. Yeah. So if you want to get motivation, if you want to learn the mindset, pick up books or watch documentaries or listen to podcasts of athletes and especially fighters.
Yes.
Because they will tell you everything you need to know about yourself. When you're in a sales environment, it literally is yes or no.
Yeah.
It's in boxing, you either beat someone up or you get beaten up. There's no in between.
There's no in between, exactly.
There's no one else to look after you. Unlike football, not knocking football because it's a great sport. But if you don't put the work in outside the ring, you will get found out inside the ring.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with business, it's the same thing with sales, and it's the same thing with life. If you're not putting that mindset, the emotional control, the physical attributes, you'll get found out eventually.
Exactly. 100%.
So that's why I resonate with what you're saying
100%.
now. I'm going to pivot. Look, I feel like I can't have a podcast with you without talking slightly about your dad, right? Why is he called Mr. Versace?
He was actually friends with Gianni back in the days before he died. My dad was the first person to get Versace home in the 2000. In 2000, he was one of the first people to actually kit his house out in London with fully Versace. He's friends with Donatella as well, so he's always had that family relationship with them. But they call him Mr. Versace because everything, not only in the house, but what he wears is Versace. I mean, our house in Nigeria is crazy, man. I mean, the Versace swimming pool, Versace towels, walls, ceilings, clothing, bed sheets, cup, plates, everything. Do I have a picture? I don't have a picture on this phone. It might be on the internet, but it's just like when you walk in there, it's like a golden palace with Medusa head signs and colors and stuff. So that's kind of why he's Mr. Versace. But his explanation of why he wears colorful clothing was because he said that he was always very short and he wanted to be noticed. So that's why he wore flamboyant clothing. Yeah.
Well, that's logical, and I get that logic. I'm going to ask further about like his business, the money, etc. But I want to ask you a bit of an unusual question. I found it. Well, I was just doing research, and this is what I'm about to ask. Did he discover Banana Island? Yes. What is Banana Island?
Banana Island is the most expensive and luxurious piece of land in Africa. It's quite small. It's in Lagos, Nigeria, on the island. And how it happened. And by the way, I never knew he discovered it until he made that statement on BBC. And my dad's very like that. He doesn't blow his own trumpet. Until you ask him, he will tell you. And I've got another fucking fascinating story that I've just found out, which he hasn't told anybody but told me. And I'll tell you that privately or on air if you want.
Oh, cool. I've got to hear it on air.
Okay, so I didn't know that my dad was one of the reasons why Nigeria had a democracy. Right. So he was very close with the army back in the days, and we had a military rule, right? And just when one of his friends got into power, when Sani Abacha died, he was the military general president at the time. When he died, my dad's close friend was second in command, and in the army formation, it's done by rankings. So his friend became president. So he came to the house. Obviously, I wasn't born by now, but he came to my dad's house and said, "Look, Terry, I'm president now. Don't really know what to do. What should we do?" And he said, "Give it to a democracy. Make it a democracy so that people vote." And when he told me that, I was like, "Yo, like Dad, you should tell people this. It's just like you're one of the reasons why Nigeria has a democracy. That's crazy." So he's like that kind of person, man. He just does stuff. But back to the Banana Island story. So he told me one day he went to his friend's office with one of his business partner called Chagori, who is a very interesting man also. And he saw this piece of photo or whatever on the wall. So my dad asked the guy in the ministry who looked after landing at the time, he asked him, "What is that on the wall?" And the guy goes, "Oh no, it's nothing. It's the useless piece of area." And he goes, "No, he wants it." You know what I mean? So my dad took it with his partners, they discovered it, they built on it, and they made it into what it is today. So it's a very fascinating story.
So your dad is a billionaire. He's definitely a very, very wealthy guy. There's obviously all the obvious trappings and this, the accoutrements, I think the word is, of being a very successful multi-millionaire or a billionaire. But can I ask, is there a downside of having a dad who's a billionaire?
I mean, the downside, And you know what? It's quite sensitive because especially, in the world we live in where there's a lot of suffering and hunger. So when I answer this question, I have to be very careful how I answer it. Because a lot of people turn around and say, well, oh, boo you, you're living in your dad's shadows where we can't eat our food and we're in a recession. But the downside is, there's not many downsides, in terms of being looked after and stuff. But the downside is like, you're always going to be living in that person's shadow, and it's very hard to break out of your own matrix. And that's why I said before, one of my best achievement was breaking out of that matrix, that comfort zone that I've always been in. To leave that, because when you think about it, like, okay, your dad, your dad's super wealthy, you have everything. How the fuck do you leave that to come buy a little apartment in London and build your way up? Do you know what I mean? So that was one of my difficult times, was leaving that. But look, there's not many downfalls, but all the downfalls are personal. Not a lot of people understand them, but they're personal to me. Like, trying to break out of that shadow, trying to find who I am, trying to see if I can survive by myself. Because for most of my life, I wasn't able to survive by myself because he provided everything. So it really was a test to myself. Okay, great, you're of age now. Can you do this shit by yourself? So the more of personal issues I had, but on a more larger scale, there wasn't many issues because, of course, health-wise, food-wise, clothing-wise, comfort-wise, everything was provided by the great man.
So you're a CEO. You have export companies,
Yep.
You have food companies, there's a bunch of different things you're involved with. What is your dad, the characteristics, the business traits, what has he kind of taught you organically over this time to be the CEO you are today?
Man, my dad, so one thing he's taught me is that he will always do something for somebody without taking anything in return. And I learned that the hard way starting off. Like those, even for companies now, with my business, I work for big companies. I will do a lot of things for free. When we first have an engagement, I will do a lot of things for free. Because that is something that I've seen him do so many things for free without saying anything. And then now it's kind of like he can live off that goodwill. Do not underestimate the power of goodwill or the power of being kind to a human being. Don't underestimate that. That is the new currency. It really is a new currency. Like, not everything is transactional where it has to be an exchange of something. Like, just because you give me a tomato doesn't mean I have to give you an apple, right? Sometimes me giving you a tomato so you can go and make your sandwich or whatever, that goes such a long way because you don't forget that. And you may become a billionaire in the next 3 years or whatever it is. You may become the CEO of huge companies, or, my son might, one day I might be seriously broke and I might go for a job interview of the company that you own. And you remember that tomato I gave you, right? It's almost like an investment. So what he's taught me is that always be kind to people and just do it for them. Don't charge anything. If they want to pay you, fine. To within reason, of course, depending on what kind of business you run, within reason. But that's one thing he's taught me, is just do things of the goodness of your heart. And if you can get it done without too much stress, if it's a phone call, then do it. So that's something I've learned. And to be fair, it's really worked out well for me. I built a lot of great relationships by just using that analogy. And yeah, thanks, Dad.
So do you aspire to become your own self-made billionaire yourself one day?
To be honest with you, I'm not even thinking about billionaire. I'll be honest with you. I think in a world where it's so crazy and everything is trying to kill you, I'm just taking it one day at a time. As long as I'm able to put food on my table and feed the people around me and be happy, really be happy. I know it sounds very cliche and very whatever, but like, as long as I'm actually happy, then I'm good. I don't think you should ever think I want to become a billionaire. I don't think all the billionaires said they want to become billionaires or even millionaires. I think it just, you got into something you loved, in some sort of passion, you excelled at it, and it's a byproduct. The financial gain is the byproduct from what we did. So I'm not thinking about being a billionaire. I'm thinking about just smashing everything I do today, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. Yesterday's gone. So it's today is what I'm focusing on.
This is really going to be the last one or two questions I'm going to ask you. So I know I would love to do a part 2 with you, probably in a year or two's time, because I know where you are today, you're probably going to be in a wildly different place, but actually a lot better. Not talking about finances, probably that, but loads of other experiences and things that you've done. And I too feel I'm going to be in a better place as well. What is the kind of the end goal, or what are the goals over the next 5, 10, 15 years? What do you really want to achieve, and what kind of marks do you want to live on this planet?
The kind of mark I want to live is when someone says, do you remember Kid? Yeah, that Kid, man, that guy, you know. Let me tell you a story about kids. So one time I was by the bus stop, right, and, you know, this guy came out in his new car, and, you know, Kid just stopped over and picked me up and took me somewhere. Yeah. We went to a restaurant one time and Kid just paid for our bill. Yeah, he did the same thing in the hospital, paid for our medical. I want people to have those kind of stories about me where I've left an imprint, an impression, a positive impact on their lives. No one's going to remember how many Gucci belts you had, or how many Rolls Royces you had, or fucking what private jets you've been on. When you're on your deathbed, no one's going to remember that. Even you yourself, you're not going to think of those things, or watches. You're not. What you're going to think about is how many people's lives have you impacted in a positive way. How much stories can be spoken about you. You know, and that's why we speak about all the great people of our time, of our generations, up until now. So, of course, I want to be remembered in that aspect. I mean, that would be beautiful, you know?
Yeah. You probably heard on my podcast, this is how I end it, right? So I came up with a mantra, a kind of an incantation, affirmation type vibe thing that I have in my gym in at home, even on the doormat. As I walk in, I read it. It's just, I try and condition my mind with it every single day. And this is what it says: be happy, never content. Now, I've got my own interpretation of that. If I were to ask Kid Waya, what does be happy, never content mean to you?
It means never settle for anything less than what you're worth. So, yeah, be happy, of course, be grateful, because it can always be worse. But never be content, never be comfortable where you're at, because you can be achieving a lot more. To me, that's what I feel like it means.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for your time, mate.
My pleasure,
I really enjoyed this conversation. I'll be honoured to do it again at some point.
Absolutely.
I'll be honoured to come actually over to Nigeria and see how you're rolling over there.
Yes. Oh, for real?
I'd love to.
All right, cool.
I'll get the film team. We'll come over. And
all right, we're going to get done. We'll get it done.
Lovely. Okay. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it, be happy, never content, and thank you for your time.
Man, it's my pleasure.
God
Thank
bless.
you so much.